Welcome to our deep dive, everybody. Today we're looking at how political systems, began, and we're using Chapter 3 of Plato's Laws to guide us.
Okay.
And we're looking at this through this really cool modern podcast script that they call From Cavemen to Congress.
I like that.
I know, it's very catchy.
Yeah.
So obviously Plato wasn't literally talking about cavemen.
Right.
But it's a fun way to kind of think about it.
It is, yeah. It's a good way to grab your attention.
Right. How did we get from no government at all to the crazy systems we have today?
Yeah, exactly. And his answer to that question is necessity.
Necessity. Okay.
Yeah, he argues that it's necessity that drives the formation of any government.
Okay, so what does that even mean? I mean, the script gives this funny example of cavemen fighting over mammoth steaks.
Right.
Which I guess we've all been there.
Who hasn't? Right.
So I'm guessing Plato had bigger things in mind.
Oh, absolutely.
Than just dinner time squabbles. So what are some of the the necessities, the things that would push people towards creating these governments?
Well, as societies grow, they need ways to organize themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So whose mammoth is it anyway?
Right. We need room.
You need some kind of system.
Yeah.
So organization is the first necessity.
Okay.
The second is you need ways to resolve conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Right. People are going to disagree.
Right. So how to keep those mammoth steak arguments from becoming full-blown caveman brawls.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
Okay.
So you need a system, right? Now, the third necessity is where things get interesting.
Okay.
Plato says that governments also have to ensure that at least some people's needs are met.
Some.
Not
everyone.
Not everyone. It's an interesting distinction, don't you think?
Yeah. I mean, should it everyone's needs be met? That seems like a pretty basic thing a government should do.
Well, it does, doesn't it? But this suggests that even in Plato's ideal system, he recognizes that, there might be some inequality built in.
Oh, interesting.
So it makes you think about, who holds the power and how are those resources getting distributed, right?
Yeah. Even from the very beginning.
Even from the very beginning.
So not everyone gets an equal slice of mammoth steak.
Precisely. And that's the question, right?
Right. Yeah.
Who decides who gets what?
Yeah.
And that is the core question in political philosophy.
Still today.
Mm. Now, once you've got those necessities in place, Plato starts exploring different types of government.
Yeah, and he looks at the classics, right?
Mm-hmm.
Monarchy,
Mm-hmm.
democracy.
Yeah.
He even points out kind of the irony of democracy, how it's, everyone's in charge, which honestly sounds kind of messy.
It could be a recipe for disaster, yeah.
Total chaos.
Yeah.
So I guess he wasn't saying we should have just pure monarchy or just pure democracy.
Yeah. No, not at all. He was really looking for a balance between the two.
Oh, balance. Interesting.
Yeah.
So not a literal seesaw with
No, not a season.
monarchy on one end and democracy on the other.
No, he believed in blending the best of each system.
Okay.
Right. So think about monarchy. Its strength is having one leader, right?
Mm-hmm.
Someone who could just take charge, get things done.
So the classic wise and benevolent king.
Exactly.
But I mean, is that really how it works? I feel like history's full of kings who were not wise, and they were definitely not benevolent.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
But Plato's point is that you can combine that strong leadership with elements of democracy.
Okay.
Especially citizen participation.
Okay, so not the king's just taking orders.
Right.
But finding a way to include people's voices in the decision-making.
Exactly. Finding that sweet spot where you have both.
Both. Okay.
Now, it's hard not to think about Plato's Republic, right?
Right.
When we talk about these ideal systems. Yeah. So how does this discussion in the laws differ from his approach in the Republic?
That's a great question. I think the Republic is kind of his grand vision, right? Here's this perfect utopia.
Mm-hmm.
But in the laws, it feels like he's getting a little more down to earth.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. In the Republic, he's building this perfect society, right? Like a thought experiment.
Yeah.
But in the laws, he's getting practical.
Okay.
He's acknowledging that, real world political systems, they're always changing.
Right.
There's no such thing as a static utopia.
Yeah, they're always evolving.
Exactly. So he's searching for a system that can adapt and change, but still hold on to those core values like justice and stability.
It's like I like how the script puts it. They say the republic is like the architect's perfect blueprint, right?
Mm.
And the laws is the building that actually gets made
Yes.
with all the like compromises, and imperfections of the real world.
I love that analogy. That's great.
Yeah.
And speaking of shifts, one more thing that stands out to me is the absence of what Plato calls philosopher-kings in the laws.
Right.
Remember, those were like central to the republic.
Yeah, like those super smart, virtuous rulers.
Exactly, yeah.
So is he saying like wisdom and virtue don't matter anymore?
No, not at all. Those qualities are still crucial.
Okay.
But it's not as simple as just finding one perfect ruler.
Right.
So in the laws, he's thinking about how to cultivate those qualities throughout society, especially among people in leadership.
So it's like a more realistic take on how to actually get to that just and stable society.
Exactly.
It's not just like a one-person job. It's everyone's got to be involved.
It takes a village.
Okay, so if we had to like sum up the main message from this chapter, what would it be? Like, what's the big takeaway?
Well, the key message is this. Political systems are never static. They're always evolving. They're always changing.
Okay.
And the best governments are the ones that find that balance, right? Between strong leadership and citizen participation.
That's really interesting. It's kind of amazing that he was thinking about this stuff like way back then.
I know.
Like we've moved on from arguing over mammoth steaks.
Hopefully.
But like those core challenges are still there.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, organizing ourselves, resolving conflicts, figuring out how to share resources fairly.
Yeah.
Those are all, human problems that we've been dealing with for a long time.
Oh, it's like he's speaking to us.
Right. Across the century.
Across the century. Okay, so we've talked about the need for government, these different types of systems, this tension between like freedom and keeping everything from falling apart.
Right.
But I want to explore one more thing before we move on.
Okay, what is that?
This idea of Plato being like a realist when it came to politics. I mean, it seems like he understood that there's no perfect system.
Yeah.
Like every government is going to have its flaws, right?
You're absolutely right. He definitely moved away from that pure idealism of the republic.
Okay.
And he took a much more pragmatic approach in the laws.
Okay.
He knew that, the real world is messy.
Yeah.
And unpredictable.
So less about finding the perfect blueprint and more about being like ready to make adjustments as you go.
Exactly. He knew that no political system can really anticipate every single challenge or meet every single need.
Makes you wonder what he would think of our current political situation.
I know.
Things feel pretty messy right now.
I imagine he'd have a lot to say about it.
He would have a lot to say.
He was a pretty sharp observer of human behavior. And, I'm sure he'd have some pretty good critiques of our modern systems.
I bet.
Yeah.
But I also kind of think that he would be encouraged, that we're still having these conversations. Like, we're still trying. We're still trying to, like, build a more just and equitable society.
Yeah, there's something, very optimistic about the fact that we're still debating, disagreeing, searching for those better solutions.
It means we haven't given up.
Exactly. We haven't given up hope.
And that's a good reminder that even though politics can be, frustrating, messy, even sometimes it feels really disheartening. It's about something much, much bigger than us.
Absolutely.
It's about shaping the world.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So as we kind of wrap up this part of our deep dive into Plato's laws, we've covered a lot from like, where did government even come from to this struggle to balance our freedom with, keeping society from falling apart.
Yeah.
And we've seen how Plato's ideas, they might have been written a long time ago, but they still speak to us today.
They really do.
And his insights, about human nature, they're timeless. So before we go today, I want to leave you with one thought to ponder.
I like this. Okay, go ahead.
If Plato's right, that these systems are always evolving, what signs do you see of our system changing right now?
Ooh, that is a great question.
Like, what are the things that are happening that might be, like, shaping our future?
That's something worth thinking about carefully.
It is, yeah.
Really makes you think.
It does. And, speaking of things that make you think, Plato makes this other point about how even in those early forms of government, there is already this awareness of, like, power dynamics.
Oh, interesting.
Like who's making the decisions, who's benefiting from the system. It's like he's saying even from the beginning, there's this like tension between what individuals want and what's good for like the whole group.
That's a really good point. And it's something that you see throughout Plato's work. Like he was really concerned with finding that right balance, between individual liberty and social order. He knew that too much freedom could lead to chaos, but too much control could, stifle innovation and progress.
It's like walking a tightrope, right?
Yeah.
You got to give people enough space to like, thrive, be themselves.
Right.
But you also got to make sure that, society as a whole is working.
Yeah, you need those rules, those guidelines. And honestly, I mean, we're still dealing with that today, right? All the time. I mean, think about all the debates we have, like free speech, economic regulation, social media even.
Yeah.
It's all about, finding that balance, individual rights, the common good.
Yeah. It really is amazing, though, how these like ancient philosophical questions are still so relevant.
I know.
Like Plato's talking to us
across the centuries.
Across the centuries.
Yeah, I love that. His insights, about human nature, about, the challenges of, governing ourselves. Yeah. They're timeless. Yeah. They give us this framework, for understanding this complex thing we call politics.
Yeah.
That's just as valuable today, as it was back then.
Okay, so we've talked about why we even need government, different types of systems, this like tension between freedom and order. But there's one more piece I want to kind of explore before we wrap things up.
Okay, I'm all ears.
We talked about how Plato like evolved in his thinking, right? And one thing that really struck me is how much of a realist he was.
Oh, yeah.
Like when it came to politics, it seems like he got that there's no such thing as a perfect system.
Right.
That every form of government's going to have flaws.
You're right. He moved away from, the idealism of the Republic.
Okay.
And he took a much more pragmatic approach in the laws. He understood, that political systems, they're always changing. That the best we can really hope for is to create a system that's adaptable, just, and relatively stable.
So less about like finding that perfect blueprint,
right,
and more about being ready to adjust as you go.
Yeah, exactly. It's like he knew, the real world's messy and unpredictable, and no political system can account for everything.
Which makes me wonder what he would have thought about, today's political landscape.
I know, right?
Things feel pretty chaotic right now.
I imagine he'd have a lot to say. He was a sharp observer of human behavior, and, I'm sure he'd have some insightful critiques of our, modern systems.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
But you know what? I also think he might be, like, kind of encouraged by the fact that we're still having these conversations. Like, we're still trying, you know? We're still striving to create a more just and equitable society.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there is something inherently optimistic about the fact that we continue to debate and disagree and search for those better solutions.
Yeah. It's a sign that we haven't given up, right?
Exactly. We haven't given up hope.
That's a good reminder that even though politics can be so frustrating and messy, even disheartening sometimes, it really is about something much bigger than ourselves.
Absolutely.
It's about shaping the kind of world we want to live in.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And I think that's a fitting place to, kind of wrap up this part of our deep dive into Plato's laws.
Yeah, I agree. We've covered a lot of ground from like the very origins of government to this ongoing struggle to balance individual freedom with the need for order. And
how Plato's ideas, though written centuries ago, still really resonate with the challenges we face today.
Yeah. And, he might not have had all the answers, but he definitely knew how to ask the right questions.
He did. Now, before we go, I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder.
Oh, I like where this is going. Hit me.
If Plato was right that, political systems are always evolving, what signs do you see of our own system changing right now? What forces are at play that might be shaping the future of our political landscape?
That's a great question. And I think it's important for all of us to, really pay attention to the world around us, engage in those thoughtful dialogues, and just be active participants in shaping the future of our society.
I couldn't have said it better myself. It's been a pleasure diving deep with you.
Likewise, always fun exploring these big ideas with you. It's it's amazing to me how Plato can still make us think about these like really big, complex questions, even though he was writing like thousands of years ago.
It's true. It really speaks to the power of these, great thinkers, right? They tap into these like fundamental truths about human nature and how societies work. And those truths, I mean, they just transcend time and place.
Yeah. And even though Plato was like dealing with a totally different world than ours, there are so many like parallels to what we see happening in our own political landscape.
Absolutely. I mean, just think about the debates we have today, right? Like democracy versus authoritarianism.
Right.
The role of the individual versus the state. The constant struggle for justice, for fairness.
Yeah.
I mean, these are all themes that Plato was grappling with.
Right.
And they're just as relevant now as they were back then.
I think one of the things that makes Plato so compelling is that he doesn't like shy away from those complexities.
Right.
He doesn't try to like offer these easy answers or oversimplified solutions.
Yeah, he recognized that, politics is inherently messy.
Yeah.
That there are always going to be trade-offs to be made.
Right.
There's no such thing as a perfect system. And even the most, well-intentioned leaders are going to make mistakes.
It's a humbling thought for sure.
It is.
Especially, in a time when we're always looking for those quick fixes.
Right, exactly.
Those easy solutions to really complicated problems.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that progress is usually slow,
Yeah.
It's incremental, it takes patience, compromise, and a willingness to learn from our mistakes.
And it's a good reminder that we all have a role to play, right? In shaping the future of our society, whether it's through, voting or engaging in political discourse or even just like being informed and engaged citizens.
Yeah, absolutely. We can't just sit back and expect, someone else to fix things for us.
Right.
We all have a responsibility to contribute to the kind of world we want to live in.
Yeah, and I think that's a message that Plato himself would totally support.
I think so too.
Yeah.
He
believed in the power of reason and dialogue and active citizenship. Yeah.
To create a more just and equitable society.
Exactly. He believed that even though the journey might be, long and challenging, the pursuit of a better world is always worth the effort.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Plato's Laws today, let's hold on to that message. Let's be, engaged and informed and hopeful citizens who are willing to put in the work of building a better future for ourselves and for generations to come.
Beautifully said. And let's never stop, questioning, learning, striving for a world that's more just, more equitable, and more aligned with the ideals that Plato articulated, all those centuries ago.
Well, thanks for joining us on this journey today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We hope you learned some new insights from Plato's political philosophy.
Yeah.
And that it's, inspired you to keep thinking about these big questions that shape our world.
Absolutely. And until next time, keep those minds curious.
And those conversations flowing.